welcome to the Opinionated Geek podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Hanna. This is probably going to be another quick podcast, just due to the fact that there's not a whole lot of news that I really care about, or at least that I even care to even talk about. There's some stuff here and there, but eh. So it's pretty bad. It's been like 2 weeks now, and I just haven't really found a whole lot to really talk about. Uh, let's just start off by saying real quick, we didn't we gamed uh the Thursday that I did the podcast. So when I uploaded the last podcast to audio that weekend, we gamed and did some D&D. So overall, that went actually fairly well. I was actually a little bit worried. I still need to work on some stuff. I need to get better at describing stuff. I need to get better at being more to just describing stuff, whether it's what the person is using as far as his weapon and stuff, because now people are starting to level up and they're starting to get more powers and they're starting to do uh stuff's being more picky and choosy with when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, even though they're only level 3. So it's not too bad yet, but I need to make sure that if somebody is getting shot with arrows or a spell now, I have to be more better at, describing what's going on and what they're being shot at or what they're getting hit with. All that stuff. It's so like overwhelming because I'm still new at this that I tend to forget about the stuff, that type of stuff, because I'm so focused on, trying to make sure everything is being run smoothly that I forget to do the story part, the part that I actually really enjoy when I watch Critical Role. So they got bumped up to level 3 now, and they stopped. I I made a few mistakes here and there, but for the most part, uh, I did I did pretty well. The cool thing is they're actually going to have another fight soon, because I forgot I didn't read the one scenario uh closely enough, and there was basically uh someone at the camp and someone at the caves, and basically I had them some of the characters went over and checked at the cave, and I told them there was no one there besides a couple people being tied up as prisoners. So that was my mistake. But the good thing is that fight actually gave them a pretty decent challenge. So they actually had all heal up anyway. So I'm kind of glad that it worked out that way. So we'll actually have the next set of characters for that was supposed to be in the tunnel over in the other area, so they can actually uh tackle them there. Uh, at the very top of their first dungeon kind of thing at Firefinger, as it's called, I actually did a fair amount of damage there too, but they said the last fight was actually a lot harder. I don't believe so. I made two characters unconscious at the top of Firefinger, where the last fight I might have been a little bit more rounded as far as like trying to take out characters, like focus on a lot more different characters. So maybe a lot more people got damaged, but nobody actually went unconscious. I don't believe. Maybe one did. But I didn't really do. I didn't feel like I did a lot compared to what I did with Firefinger. So overall, we're getting better slowly but surely. The cool thing, and I should have. Let's see if I can organize this right now. Can I do this right now? Yes, I can. All right. Do this as we're going to go. So, I didn't think I would be into this at all. well, it wasn't even on my radar technically, but doing the Dungeons and Dragons thing, the one thing I would really like to do is I would like to uh, make my own campaign setting. That's kind of like the ultimate goal. So the idea is probably to do this adventure, and hopefully by that time, I can maybe have an idea about a campaign setting that I would like to do. Now, there's two ways about to go about doing this. There is uh, small going big and big going small. I don't know if those are the proper terms, but those are your two options typically. And of course, your small going big is you start with a small town, and as you start progressing and making adventures and stuff like that, you start building the world, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you start exploring it and all that stuff. And that's cool because it's uh, more of an adventure for you as a DM as well. But my thing is like uh I, I don't know, my mind can't wrap around that. I mean, it's just one of those things where I feel like I can't. There's there's a whole bunch of different problems I see with uh both ways. Scaling is kind of like the number one thing I'm having issues with, because you got the if you go big, then you got to make sure that roughly all the stuff that is in your adventure that you're going to make can fit into the world that you have made. And of course, you can start with one continent, and if it's just not big enough or you can't seem how to shove stuff in there, you can always make another continent, and then you can just go to a different continent. But one of the coolest things is like, well, that's probably the easiest way to do it, because that then, as long as if you start with a small town, I can make a small town. I got the programs to make a small town. That's easy. Uh, it's the world that's the issue. Once you start uh putting those towns, then you actually have to remember all the information that you're actually giving the characters. So if they're going to go to a mine or a cave or something to the northwest, you got to remember you told them that there's this cave northwest. So it's kind of, to me, I think it gets kind of convoluted and can get messy real quick. So the idea that I feel would be the better option, though, to mainly because of limits. Limits are good. When you have to work within the limits, you are more creative about how you work within those limits. If you have all the options in the world, you kind of get almost overwhelmed with the what options you have. So the idea for me is I would like to start off with an entire setting, like the actual world is already made, or at least part of it. The like a major continent is already made, and then I can work within those confines. Now, you always got to worry about the scaling with this issue too, because I'm like, okay, now I got this uh this piece of land to work with, and I got to make it work with all the adventures that I want to do. So of course that's the issue, and so it's going to take a little while to understand it, and I'm starting to, I think, understand it a little bit more as I'm looking at other people's maps and stuff. It's like you don't really need to put every little town and obviously every little cavern and stuff uh on the continent. You can just like put like little uh just little, like, I don't want to say exclamation points, but like little diamonds or something to reference that yes, there is a town here, but because the world is so big, it's not shown on the map. So I'm starting to learn that I can just do that for a lot of stuff, but for like the major cities, you kind of want to put a little something there to show that there is a major city here. So there's a couple options. There's a bunch of software that is pretty expensive. There's the that's designed specifically for uh, fantasy cartography type stuff. Then there is the what you call it, GIMP and Photoshop that you can actually do maps that way, which is a little bit more difficult because you got to do everything from scratch. It's not really uh, set up to be nice and easy for everybody. And then there's this program. It's not really a program. It's a browser program. I guess it's still a program no matter what, but it's all done in the browser. Uh, and that is called Inkarnate. Inkarnate, I would say, is probably one of the best options for a person to just get up and running really quick. Now, they have a free version and then they have a monthly or yearly option. The monthly is like $5 a month, the yearly is $25. But basically, I forget how many assets you get with the free version. I think it's only like 100, maybe, if that. I would say it's probably like 50. Uh, but the paid version, you get like I think it's 500 assets. Now, the thing that you want to do if you're going to pay for it, I would definitely go and do the free version, see if it's something that you would like. But then once you actually decide if you like it or not, I would just go ahead and buy the year. And normally, I'm not one of those people. I never buy year stuff because halfway through it, I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to want to purchase a full year type of thing or if I'm just wasting my money. I, it's still like I remember back from my friend, he bought a year subscription to World of Warcraft and he just didn't play it that long. And it just ended up basically being a waste of money for him for the most part. He maybe played for a half a year, but then again, he just should have bought a half a year subscription. So I try not to buy stuff that I don't know how long I'm going to use it for. But because this is so cheap to buy on a yearly rate, which I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but it's only $25 for a year or $5 a month. I would say it's definitely worth it because you don't know what you're going to be doing as far as your campaign. Your campaign might grow. It might get your just players might just go on a different path, or you just might just outgrow the actual continent that you're actually on, and you might want to go to a different setting, and you can just have them travel across the sea for a second. But anyway, I've been slowly learning on YouTube on how to do some of these, make these maps a little bit better. You should see my first one. My first one's pretty rough. Uh, but here I'll show you right now what it looks like currently. So this is my second attempt at doing a map. Uh, I forget what the guy's name was on YouTube, but he really helped out, and apparently he does. Oh yeah, that's another reason. If you spend for the pro license of Inkarnate, you can actually make these maps professionally and get paid for them, and you don't have to worry about Inkarnate, the people actually like suing you for selling the stuff. So this guy actually makes maps and sells them to people. So he actually uses Inkarnate to make maps, and he's done some tutorials on how to make better maps. Because even I was doing it, where I'm just like, here's some mountains, and here's the fortress, and here's the castle, and all that stuff, and it looked very much. I mean, overall, with the colors and the just the way everything is, it makes everything look good right out of the gate, but it can look better. So it's obviously not noticeable with this map that I'm showing right here. And I'm sorry for the audio listeners. I will put a post on my Opinionated Geek Facebook page so you can actually view it. But when you actually just start off, everything kind of looks like it. If you're super nitpicky, everything kind of looks like it's floating. So you put the fortress down, and yes, it has a little shadow around it, but it still looks almost like it's floating on top of the map in a way. So, uh, uh, according to this guy's tutorial, he says, and it definitely helped with the mountains. Without a doubt, it helped with the mountains. Uh, and it does look kind of good with the fortresses and castles and all that stuff, but it really helped with mountains and hills and all that stuff. But you take a dark brown uh, land for the brush, and then basically you just go around the objects, and basically where it's where you notice it's actually like pinned to the ground. Like for example, the mountain, it's going to have like the hill, and then it's going to have the flat part where it's supposed to hit the ground. Uh, put some brown right underneath there, and the way that the program automatically fades the brown. It it's not 100%, but it actually kind of fades it into the green and then into the mountain, and the mountain looks like it's actually there and meant to be there. Other tips that the guy pointed out is if you're doing like mountains and buildings and stuff like that, uh, you can actually put stuff in the background as well. So if you are going to have mountains and stuff, make sure you put some trees and make it look like it's actually the tree is behind the mountain a little bit, so that way it gives it depth. And then of course, what I originally didn't have was I didn't have a shore, so I made a little yellow color all around the areas uh, of the land. I was really surprised at how easy it was to make the land look natural. My first uh, map was very. You could tell that I basically just like I tried to make it unnatural, but I still, was just drawing it out, and it looked very. It had too much roundness. It looked like it was obviously fake. But I was like, hey, that's pretty good for my first time around. But then I looked on tutorials, and I basically like you get a rough uh idea of how you want your continent to look. And then basically what you do is it's a tedious plan and idea, but actually I learned this after I had laid a lot of this down on the map you see over here. Uh and I had already had my shape, I had already had stuff laid down, and I still was able to craft it out and make it look like a more natural, realistic world. So essentially, all you're doing is you're making, you're subtracting, you're not adding. So basically, you're cutting out the land, and you start off with a small but not super small, and then you just cut out like little areas and make it like as jaggedy as you possibly can. And then you go back over it with even a smaller one. I think I ended up doing a 3 on the scale, and you're just going to just continue to cut more and more stuff out. And once you're at that level, you can kind of go crazy with it and just like yeah with your mouse, because anything that looks unnatural, like just too uh, off the wall, or you make you'll actually start making like little tiny islands that break off into the sea as you're like scribbling and making it all crazy. And that actually comes in handy sometimes because you might want to make a little islands that break off. And then, of course, you just clean it up, uh, all the other nonsense mess that you don't want. And it actually turns out pretty good because this is my first attempt at it, and it actually looks like it's a real continent. And it's got, a little couple islands. That one on the very bottom corner of the on the left side. If I actually could, well, actually, I can zoom it in. I think. Let's go bigger and cover my face. I actually went a little crazy with that one, and you can actually see. Oh yeah, and also the pro version is HD. So here we're going to transition, and as you can see, there's little tiny islands that are broken off into this. So it's pretty cool, and of course, right here, I made a little tower, and I'm sure with the pro version, it would look even better. But in front of the tower, right on the shore, I have two watchtowers. They're kind of hard to see though. But yeah, all that brown underneath the tower and the mountains and stuff. That that helps, make the stuff more seems more real and attached to the world. Uh and then over here, I got a little orc uh place, and of course I put trees all around it to make sure it looks like it is a more real 3D depth thing. I have a dragon flying over here, though it's kind of hard to see with the what you call it, with all the other brown and stuff, even though it is supposed to be a red dragon. And then in there, you can't really see it too well, but there's some ruins there. And of course, above that, there's some dead trees. And then I have a little town in surrounded by some trees, and then of course I got a road going up, and it's going to hit another town. Well, I guess yeah, they're called towns. They're towns because at the very top, it's kind of hard to see. Right near the mountain and hill area at the very top, in this almost center, but not quite. There's a little tiny village I have, and then at the bottom of the base of the mountains, surrounded by some trees, I have a temple or a church of some sort. And then over here, I got the big town along with some ships and stuff. And I have another an outpost with two other what you call it, towers to keep an eye out. And then over at the very corner, I have a little wizard's tower over in another possible continent. And of course, if you get like the pro version and stuff, you can actually have snow-topped mountains and stuff like that. But with the free version, you do not get that. But yeah, that's my map that I made in probably an hour, maybe. Maybe a little less. So it is really easy to make a cool looking map, and I highly recommend it. The only issue is I'm not sure if this will help in the pro version, but from the way I hear on some of the Dungeons and Dragons sites, it might not be that great because those people are also using the pro version where I've just experienced the free version, so I'm taking kind of like their word on it. I guess it they don't give you enough what you would think with the pro version with having HD dimensions and stuff, you would be able to actually do it a lot better. But I don't know why, I don't know how, but apparently they do feel like it's lacking that real world feel to it. Now, right here, I understand because it doesn't look like that big of a world. Now, if I made everything really, really tiny, I'm sure I could. Like the towns, just, not have an actual physical town, but have like a little icon and say there's a town there. And of course, make the what you call it, the city smaller and do all that stuff and scale everything kind of down. I You might be able to make it feel a little bit bigger, but overall it doesn't feel big. So this is a really cool idea and it's really awesome, but I think I agree with some people that there's not a whole lot to make it really feel big. And I recommended though that if people want to make have other continents, which some people said they have made other continents, but the problem is like there's no way in the program to combine the world. And my thought was, well, don't be an idiot. Go get GIMP or Photoshop if you have Photoshop, and just go in there and put them together, and you're done. So I guess that's how you would make a bigger world with Inkarnate. But this has got me actually really, really hyped for some reason because I'm like, oh, this is cool and all, but it's not 100% what I want. It makes it look very, very professional, and I'm still working on this map, by the way. It's definitely not finished. It's too bare, but you know, it's still lacking the bigness, and B, uh, it doesn't have all that I want. Granted, I'm sure if I got the pro version, it might, but I want to actually go a little bit more in depth and learn how to make something completely from scratch. And I started looking around and I found a cool tutorial on how to make a map with Photoshop. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I don't like subscriptions if I can help it. And Photoshop is subscription based now, and you can't buy it outright anymore. So that's kind of a no go for me. And then because one of the things that they really, the video promoted was brushes. You can get all these cool, unique brushes that, work for the fantasy worlds to make cool D&D type map. And then I was like, wow, that's cool and all, but what do I got? What are my options? And then I did a little bit of searching and I found out GIMP is actually compatible with Photoshop brushes. So you can go online, and I'm sure there's some free ones, but I've even seen for around $10, you can get a whole bunch of brushes for these to make these maps. And essentially, all it is kind of like Inkarnate, which the brushes are almost like stamps. So if you want to make a mountain here, you just take the mountain brush and stamp it essentially on your map. So you can make essentially the same dang thing, only now you're free to kind of run around and pick pieces that you want instead of having to just deal with what they have as far as their assets and stuff. So we're going to try to learn that and maybe get a basic setup of an actual world with a couple continents, hopefully by the end of this week. And if I can, time permitting, I'll show it up on the next podcast for next week. But I'm really, really digging this, and I'm really, really getting into it. And I'm really happy that GIMP is as awesome as it is. Uh, I just realized I might have to move myself. Can I move myself? Let's move myself. Yeah, let's move myself over a little bit more. I'm not sure if what happened. No, I know what happened. I moved my, I'm I moved my I got myself a new speaker, but the speaker is big. I miss my actual mixing uh monitors. And monitors, I mean speakers for mixing music. They call them studio monitors. And one of them went out, so I only have one that's working, and that's no good. So I need to get a either a replacement for the old one or just buy a new pair. But you're still looking at a pair around $300 for a cheap set. So, I've been dealing with just mixing through headphones for quite a while, and I've been using uh actually this actually not long actually, but it's a little iHome. It's a waterproof. I shouldn't say waterproof. Water resistant maybe is the more proper term. Little speaker, and the biggest problem with these types of speakers are they're meant to be portable. They're not meant to be as an actual desktop speaker. So it's got two things that I hate about it. A, because it's all about saving battery and stuff. Because it's meant to be portable and taken with you, and they're trying to make the battery last as long as possible. It's got two things with that power saving stuff that I don't like about it. It has a timeout period. If it's not having anything put through it, it will turn off. It doesn't matter if it's charging or not, it turns off. I hate that. I've gotten used to it. I'm just like, every time I go make some dinner or something, if I come back, I know I need to press the power button. It's annoying, but it worked. And then, of course, my other thing that I hate about it is the fact that it has some sort of uh, a threshold. So basically, if the volume's too low, nothing will come out of it. And I didn't realize that at first. I actually thought it was like there's something wrong with my sound card or something. And lo and behold, it's just like, no, you got to beef up the audio going into this, even if it's a nice light sound, or it won't go through at the volume that it needs to acknowledge that there's sound coming to the speaker. So you have to, whatever source you have, you basically have to crank it up and then use the volume on the speakers to adjust the volume. And sometimes those volume notches are just too big of a leap. So at work, my manager comes over to me and is like, "Hey, I'm going to put these out on the sales floor for clearance, and I put a 75% sticker on them. Did anybody, did you or my one coworker, do you guys want either of these?" And it's basically I forget what, I think it's HDMX, but they make the Jam brand, and they got Jam Wi-Fi speakers that we had at work for a while now that just basically didn't sell. In fact, it was a little bit questionable to begin with. And I was like, you know what? If you're putting 75% off them, so it brought the thing down to $25. And then I got my employee discount, so it brought it down even further. I was like, sure, I'll take it. Now, the issue is it's basically, I would say, maybe 3 times bigger than that speaker that I just showed. So it's around 8 by 7 inches. And when I have it right in front of me, my monitors are being covered, and they're still being covered. I need to actually find a way to put the monitors up a little higher. But due to the fact that I did mess with some stuff and mess with my monitors and jacked them up a little bit further, uh, my my microphone got repositioned. So I moved my microphone, and I'm going to transition here soon in a second. But it has an auxiliary port, so basically I can plug in my computer to this, so it works perfectly as far as that goes. Uh, there's no on and off; it's always on, so that's great. I don't have to worry about there. I can go into the actual app settings and change the fact that I can change it to have a timeout, but I don't have a timeout because I don't want it turned off. I'll turn it off when I turn off my audio interface and all that stuff when I'm done with my computer. But it sounds way better. Uh, and the coolest part is if I want to unplug it, I can unplug it and it actually runs off my Wi-Fi, and then I can send whatever I want from my phone or my iPad to this thing, and it will work perfectly. So yeah, that's awesome. I need to jack it up though because it's still slightly blocking the corners of my monitors. But anyway, that was a long thing to say. Basically, uh, yeah, I've been playing the crap out of Warframe. Not as much as my one friend, but because she's, I think, she says though she hasn't been. She's let it sit while it's still playing, type of thing. So she doesn't have exactly that amount of hours into it, but she's at like 200 and some hours. And for me, I'm not. It's funny. I love games. I love talking about games. I like playing games, but I have a short attention span. And if it doesn't like really keep me motivated, I don't stick with games very long. I it's hard for me to beat a lot of games, and it's pretty impressive that I do beat a game. I'm usually like play, play, play. Well, I'm bored, so I'm over it. So that's why I've been getting into more of the like Life is Strange and stuff. It's got a couple hours of good gameplay, like 30 hours, and you're done. It's not like a a 200-hour game. Though I did surprisingly beat The Witcher 3, but it took me a long time because I put it down and then I'd pick it back up. And I almost lost all my saves the one time, but luckily I had it backed up. And yeah, but well, Warframe is really really interesting because it's pointless. It's a loot game. Basically, your whole idea is to get more and more stuff, and you use that to shoot more stuff to get more stuff, and that's what it is. But I've gotten I think 38 hours into the now. With the first time I played it, I only played like 2 hours, but even that was surprising because I don't really try out games, and this was a complete tryout. It was just like, oh, Twitch is giving me a whole bunch of free stuff through Twitch Prime, so I'm like, I guess I'll give it a shot. And like 2 hours later, I'm done playing, and that's usually rare. I'm usually like, let's give it a half an hour, maybe an hour if you're lucky. So it's to me, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that I'm actually playing it this long. Uh, what I'm also pretty impressed with is the fact that although you do, it's tempting to do, but I don't feel too pressured in that I have to buy certain things. Uh, because this is 100% you can buy whatever the heck you want with real money. Granted, you got to buy platinum, and then that buys you whatever in-game thing that you want. but I don't feel like I have to. They have ways of getting all the best stuff in the world. That is, if you can grind enough, but you don't have to. Like, in order to level up, you need to start upgrading equipment, like your gun, your armor, your your companion or pet thing. Uh, you always have to be leveling something up. If everything is at max level, which 30 is the max that you can get on those items, you're not going to level up at all. So the idea is as soon as you max level something, you need to get something else and max that out. Now, the issue is a little bit more complicated than that because you have to also focus on having multiple things that you need to max out. Because let's say your armor's maxed out, your sidearm's maxed out, but your main gun is not. Your armor, it still will give that same amount of experience to your armor. From what I can tell, that's the way it does it. So, because when you actually have everything that needs to start like maxing out, like you have a gun that still needs to level up, your main and secondary weapon that needs to be leveled up, and your armor needs to be leveled up, you will actually gain experience a lot quicker. Now, if you have like one or two things that need to be leveled up, I forgot you got a melee weapon too, and so you got four four things without like companions or anything that you actually can level up at all times. And if some of that stuff's maxed out, I'm pretty sure experience will still go to those items that are maxed out, just so you essentially don't get all the experience doesn't go to that one area that does need to be leveled up. That's the way it seems anyway, because from levels 1 to 4, I didn't have any issues, but then again, I had uh with the Twitch Prime stuff, I had two armors because you get one right out of the gate, and then the Twitch Prime gave me a second one, which it gave me the Trinity Prime armor, and then of course you got your guns, and guns are pretty pretty easy to make because you don't actually get anything. You get blueprints, or you buy blueprints, and then you make those items. And of course, like it's set up like a mobile game, so everything is you can rush stuff, or you can just downright pay for it. So most of the guns and stuff, they're going to take 24 hours to make. You can make armor too, but armor is a lot more of a challenge to actually make because it's not made with typical stuff. There's usually a rare item that you need to actually, well, actually it's all rare, or at least harder to come by, and you typically will need to go to bosses and start grinding for different aspects of that gear. Like the first major boss will give you all the rhino armor. So, or I keep on calling it armor. It's called Warframe. So that gives you the rhino Warframe. So you got to keep on beating them, and there's three pieces to any Warframe. So you got to get those from the bosses. Occasionally, you will just going through certain quests. Some stuff will just happen to land. I'm not sure how or why it happens, but I have gotten some Warframe stuff. There's stuff just dropping and not from a boss. Uh, and then you got those three things, and then you got one more thing usually that's harder to come by, and like it took me uh to like three or four planets before I could get to the stuff that I needed to make the Rhino Warframe. So now I think I got one more day, but it takes 2 days for the Rhino to be made. Uh, and I'm sure that's how all Warframes are going to be. So I finally I'm made my I shouldn't say made, I'm making my third Warframe suit so I can start leveling up a little bit quicker this time around. But again, this stuff's hard to come by, so you need to start grinding a lot. And then of course there's Prime Warframes, which are basically, I need to look into it a little bit more differently, or a little bit better. But Prime Warframes, they have a lot more slots, or I shouldn't say slots, but I think they have the same amount of slots, but those slots can be upgraded to higher amounts. So it allows you to upgrade your mods more than the regular armor. So you got the regular, for example, Rhino Warframe, and then you got the Rhino Prime Warframe, which is a little bit more beefed up. Now you can still beef up a regular Rhino uh, Warframe by adding some, I think it's some sort of special cell that is also hard to come by, which to me I think it's essentially turning into a prime, but I'm not positive. Again, still need to look into it. But if that's all prime is just taking, a regular Warframe and adding that cell or whatever the heck it is into the Warframe, if that's all it is, I don't need, if it doesn't have the word prime on it by upgrading it through that way, I don't care about whether it's prime or not, as long as I can just like shove that little piece of upgrade into it and move on. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, 38 hours, not too bad. So if I think it's because for the most part I can just sit back uh when I get off work and just zone out. It's like it's like a Will Ferrell comedy. It's not great. It's not bad, but I don't have to think about it either when I'm watching it. I can just vegetate essentially, and I think that's what Warframe is to me. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It might be a good way for you to just chill and enjoy a mindless game that's better than Destiny somehow. I mean, for what the game is, I say somehow because it doesn't seem like it would be better than Destiny, but somehow they make it better than Destiny. I don't know, but they do. All right, moving on. This is something I'm just throwing in here because I'm like, just because I'm going to do something that has to do with my podcast for this, I signed up for voices.com. I'm not sure how I got on this somehow, but all of a sudden it somehow popped into my little world of, I'm not sure if I was like looking at Critical Role stuff and all of a sudden uh voice acting type stuff popped up, because if you're not aware, Critical Role is a Dungeons and Dragons I shouldn't say podcast. It's a live stream that they do every Thursday. Typically, every once in a while they won't have a stream because of just life. But uh, it's done by a whole bunch of voice actors, and it's because it's done by a whole bunch of voice actors, it's done very well, and they gear towards more towards story than the actual action. Now, don't get me wrong; they go into fights and stuff, but when they get into the story, they really get into it and they really dramatize it because they are actors. But all of a sudden it started popping up, and then I started looking into videos about voice acting. It's one of those things where people would always comment on, it's the only compliment I usually get. It's never on looks, and I don't blame them, but one of the things that they've always complimented me on is like, you got a really great voice for radio, you should do radio. And I'm like, that would be fun and all, but I just don't have anything. I don't feel like I need to say for you know, 6 hours for a day. So I never really pursued radio, but I did decide to do the podcast thing, just as a more of a hobby. And since I don't really do music seriously, like a lot. So I'm like, I got all this equipment that I fiddle around with music, but I'm like, I would like to use it for something that can actually be useful instead of just fiddling around. So I'm decided I was just going to do the podcasting thing. So what I'm planning on doing is I already signed up for voices.com, and now I need to make a little profile and portfolio, because they give you a couple of files that you can like upload. So my first goal, and I'll actually let everybody listen to it when I'm actually ready for it to be done. I'm going to upload a commercial, like it's supposed to be like a radio commercial for the Opinionated Geek podcast. So I'll write the script and then do you know, the voiceover, and maybe have some music jingling in the back and all that stuff. Then I'll obviously upload it to voices.com, but once I'm done with it, I'll also let you listen to it on the actual podcast when I actually get it done. And then I guess I need to that's a commercial. Then I guess I need to do maybe like a voiceover documentary type thing, and then maybe uh a voiceover for like an animation type thing. So I'm going to do all those, and maybe if I can think of something else that maybe I would like to do, uh, then we'll upload all those and see if we can't like start doing some jobs here and there. I know I don't. I'm not like getting my hopes up at all, but I think it'd be actually really cool if I could just even get a job. Uh, the reality is they could get me for dirt cheap, because at this point I just I'd be happy just doing anything, even if it's for like here's $20 to you know play a voice in a video game. But anyway, on to the next thing. Uh, this is for a limited time. I'm almost tempted to do it because I don't have a console right now because my PS4 broke, and although I'm not really a big fan of Xbox One. There's only a couple reasons why I want an Xbox One. I don't have a 360 anymore. All these cool games that came out that I missed, I would like to play them. I also would like to do like the Metal Gear Solid uh uh multi pack, with it basically has all the Metal Gears up to uh excluding 5. I think there's it's on one disc, or not maybe on one disc, but it's in one package. I would like to get that and play it. I never got to play Red Dead Redemption, so I would like to play that. There's just a bunch of older games that I would like to play. Uh, and as far as the actual Xboxes, as far as playing their modern games, I really I don't see myself doing it. But this thing's apparently a limited time thing where you get an Xbox One console, you get an Xbox Live Gold, and you get Xbox Game Pass. So that's a uh the I'm not sure how much Game Pass is. I'm not sure if it's like $10 a month, or I think that's all it is. But so that right there is $120 for a year. And then you got Xbox Live Gold, that's $60 a year. So uh it's $190 every year. And then you got the uh it's a contract for 2 years. So that's, you know, almost $400 right there. And then you got an Xbox One console for, I believe, I think I forget how much they are anymore. Is it 290 something? I don't know. But anyway, this is going for, it's for a limited time. I don't think it's going to be forever, but to be honest with you, I really think they should keep doing it forever because uh, they'll get a lot more people. Again, they're literally making me think about doing this. But think about it this way: for the price of the Audible subscription, where you get the two audiobooks per month, you get Xbox Live Gold, Xbox Game Pass, and an Xbox One console for $21.99 for 24 months. Once the 24 months is done with, you own the Xbox. That's for the Xbox One S. If you want the Xbox One X, the the Scorpio, as I call it, because that's a better name, it's $34.99. So that's not bad, but for an Xbox One S, $21, $22 essentially. No strings attached, no upfront cost, one low monthly price. Uh, Obviously you need to. Oh, anyway, yeah, yeah. So basically, Xbox One X. That's $500. 24 months of Xbox Game Pass. That's $239.76 at full price, and 24 months of Xbox Live Gold is $119.98. Uh, Subtracting the subscription cost from the Xbox All Access cost of $839.76. I don't know what the heck that means. That means you're getting the console for $480 US dollars. Not bad, eh? That's with the Xbox One X. So it seems like a good deal. So yeah, you're essentially getting a couple of bucks off the Xbox One X. It looks like that is if you take away the other subscriptions. So anyway, it's a really good deal. I mean, my issue is that it is an Xbox. Any things that I know I want to play are some of the old games. I don't really have a whole lot for uh anything else. But anyway, there's that. I'm not sure how long it's going to be going for, but it is going for now. And of course, let's move on to news that happened today. Uh, uh Henry Cavill, I think that's how you say his name. The guy who plays Superman is going to be Geralt for the Witcher series on Netflix. Uh, my one friend is super happy about this. I'm disappointed because I'd rather have a bunch of nobodies that I've never even heard of, uh, and just be non-opinionated. But because it's the guy who played Superman, I'm just like, eh. I don't like this move, but apparently he has played the games. He apparently has read the books and knows the source and stuff. Now, again, the good thing is Geralt. I haven't got into the books yet. I do have one of the books, but I started listening to it and then I just stopped because I have this issue where I get behind on podcasts and then I got to catch up on podcasts, and it's just a bunch of bouncing back and forth. And now I haven't even gotten back to that book. And and it wasn't like the main. It wasn't a main book, but it was like the first set of stories that he did with short stories that has to do with The Witcher. So it's not like a full fledged story. It's more like a sets of short stories. So, eh, uh, it's so I can't really judge also via what I've listened to so far from that aspect of it. I need to actually get the real first book that it's just one big story and then go off of that. But if he's anything like the games as far as Geralt's concerned, he might be able to pull it off no matter what because Geralt doesn't have a whole lot of emotion going on. It's very subtle and when he has a joke or something, it's kind of like, yeah, it's very dry if he has anything. And of course, they say that I think that's due to like his mutations or something. He doesn't have a whole lot of emotion there, or at least that's the way I think they described it in the games. But uh, overall, I'm not too happy with this. But hopefully, they'll prove me wrong, and it'll be awesome. But my thing is, I don't want this filled with a bunch of you know AAA, uh, not AAA, a whole bunch of famous actors, and basically they throw the story kind of to the side because they don't need to sell the story because they got the famous actors. So, and of course, I joked around. She would be a horrible choice because, to me anyway, because she doesn't look anything remotely alike, but neither does Henry here look like Geralt. But I joked that now I'm waiting for the announcement where Scarlett Johansson is going to be announced for Siri because naturally no one can. There's nobody else in Hollywood it seems besides Scarlett Johansson. It's Scarlett Johansson this, Scarlett Johansson this. It's like I'm pretty sure there's other females in Hollywood, but it's like overall it's like they constantly cast Scarlett Johansson and everything, and I'm tired of seeing her face. But what are you gonna do? So anyway, that is the podcast. I actually probably made this go on a lot longer than what I needed to. So yeah, so hopefully next week maybe you'll get maybe a little hint at uh some voiceover work with doing a commercial for the Opinionated Geek, and also maybe a map, a start of a map at least, going and doing it through GIMP. So anyway, that is all, and thank you for watching. For if anybody did. And I will upload, of course, this on Thursday to YouTube and to the opinionatedgeek.com in audio form. Anyway, see you later. Bye.